Okay, so now you have an offer that's ready for clients. You've gone to the trouble of developing your target market and looking at who your ICPs are, uncover their pains and motivations. Now you've developed an offer that really meets their needs, and you just need to put some structures around the sales process, enabling your sales team in the right way so that they can um, execute on a repeatable process. It just sort of ensures that time is well spent, and that when you finally find prospects that are right for your solution or that fit, your value proposition, that you have a much higher chance to succeed because you know what you're doing. So let's look at what the pieces are. Okay, this train is finally coming into the station. This is episode 4 of the go-to-market campaign blueprint. And if you haven't seen the first 3 episodes, you should go look at the Frenzied Founder podcast playlist on the YouTube site for Build Run Kit. And there you will find all of the parts of this presentation, how we developed a target market and our ideal customer profiles, how we looked and saw whether our solution fits the need, or if we have to develop more things or include partners or whatever, or just skip it. And then we developed the offer. And now we're on to the part where we actually enable our sales team or ourselves with the assets that we need to actually close a deal. So I'm just going to fast forward and get to that part. So, um, so the lean marketing asset toolkit. So it's enablement, it's enforcing structure, and it's ensuring success. So let's get ready to approach prospects with confidence. We already know what we're talking about, and we know how to meet the objections and answer questions and close sales. So what does that entail? The first thing that we're gonna want to develop is a landing page, or well, this doesn't have to be done in any order, I suppose. But today we're gonna look at a landing page and what goes into that, and outreach templates, just kind of how do we communicate with our prospects via email or on the phone. We're going to develop a proposal template, and then we're going to actually ask the customer to commit. And if this is something that, like in our Eco Village example that we've been using, this is a solution that I'm going to have to finish developing. I'm going to have to plug some holes to be able to completely make this solution what the Eco Villages need. So I'm going to be looking for at least 3 villages to commit to, yeah, they're interested. And so in my case, it's going to be a letter of intent that I'm looking for from the village to say, yeah, we agree your ideas are good. We trust that you're sort of an authority on the subject. And if you bring it, we will try it. We're not looking for them to sign a contract. We're just looking for some sort of commitment. And if your solution is already something that's on the market and ready to go, then it might look like more like a letter of commitment or some sort of engagement letter. So let's get into just what the sales process is going to look like. I'm sorry this slide looks a little complicated, but it's really not that complicated. It's just what we've talked about. We identified the prospect who we're trying to target, and so we do some initial outreach, and that could look like mass emails, or it could look like reach outs on LinkedIn. If it's possible, especially if it's a higher ticket item, hopefully it's just a personal email that you really tailored to who that village is or who that customer is. In my case, it's an eco village. So if I write to a particular one, I probably already know something about them, and I can sort of fold that story into the conversation. So it's worth it if you have the time and it's not something that's really high volume, just to personalize it. We're going to try to do a demo or a presentation. In my case, for the eco village solution, it would be kind of a combo of a demo and a presentation of what we're trying to develop, since it's not finished yet. And then we're going to send the proposal, and we're going to ask for some commitment. And if you don't ask for the commitment, the sales process ends there, and you probably won't ever close the sale. People need to be told exactly what to do and how to follow up. And so this is going to go really fast. It's a lot, but the assets are actually pretty simple. So let's just hop into the landing page. So there's a few sections that are going to be helpful to have on a landing page, because you're trying to get from pain to no pain. So you need to convince the customer that you can solve, that you know what their problems probably are and that you can solve them. And so the sections we're going to look at are the hero sections, which is this big section over here. Maybe it has an image and a headline that's above the fold. And then at some point we're going to have a section. These aren't necessarily all in order, but we're going to have a grind section where we demonstrate we know how painful it is. And maybe if it's not painful, we poke it a little bit more until it is. And then we go into the bridge to show how we start to address that issue. And then we put in some differentiators that only we do this. We try to include some sort of a social proof while being careful not to be liars about it. That social proof can be tough if it's a new product or a new business. You may have to be creative to figure out what to include there to give people confidence. And then the final nudge that we'll talk about is just kind of reversing the risk, or like taking away the objections and making them understand that they can move forward and that there's no downside to moving forward. And then just a simple footer. So our hero section, I'm not going to go through and read all of these, but you'll be able to download the presentation at brkit.vip/GTM. So I'll try to flash that URL on the screen a few times throughout the presentation so that you can remember to do the download. And hopefully at the same time that I put the complete presentation up, I'll put up the templates as well. Those might lag a little bit, but on that same site, you'll be able to get those templates as well, so you can sort of fast forward this process for yourself. So your headline needs to be specific, and it needs to kind of meet your ICP's needs, right? And then address a specific problem. You do just want to have one main call to action. If you have any other call to actions, like in this sort of example I do, right? I have a primary CTA. My secondary one is to see a video. But any secondary actions, I want them to stay on the page. If I have my prospect leave the landing page for any reason, then that's really going to probably negate all the work I've done and end up in not closing a sale. So that's why you often see that landing pages don't have the menu, like the menu section to go see pricing or go learn about the product, or maybe you've noticed on a landing page that the logo doesn't actually link out to the main website. There's a reason for that, and it's because you don't want the customer to leave the landing page until they've committed, until they've taken that main call to action. So maybe you want to include a screenshot here, but something really specific that's part of the product that addresses their needs. So the grind is just demonstrating that you know what the painful thing is and how it's addressed. And so we can do a few bullets there. And we're going to show some examples of this in just a minute. The bridge is sort of how we address it and what the steps are. And we make it really simple. And we may include a video at this point about how that looks. Generally, we do this is a concept of moat, like your differentiator, or something that you do that nobody else can do, or that other people don't do well. So include that if you can. Social proof is anything that gives the customer like some comfort that you know what you're doing and you can solve their problems and you're going to be there long term. So in my case, since my software is relatively new, and the Eco Village is a new type of customer for me, I might lean into my personal authoritative Eco Village history, because I'm on the board of an Eco Village. I know how they work, and I've been in the software industry for years and years and years. So I might lean into something like that, since I don't really have testimonials that are applicable at this point, but just whatever you can to give your customer comfort. The final nudge is just anything that you can do to show the customer that there's really no downside. They can try it. They don't have to commit. They really want to. Just whatever you can do to convince them and try to get them to feel comfortable contacting you. Footer, of course, is just privacy policy terms and contact info, and then just whatever. It's simple. And so, like, just a few pointers on what you might want to include on your landing page. Probably make sure that you include, if you can, a picture of an actual person that's not just an AI generated one, and what their title is, and them being happy. Of course, if you don't have that, you can include it. A calculator diagnostic tool, if there's any way that you can sort of come up with a way for them to actually do the work themselves to calculate what better thing is going to happen because they use your solution, then that's great. Addresses like the top objections that they probably have. You can't be in somebody's head to know what their real objections will be, but you can guess what they probably will object to and answer those, and make sure that you have some sort of a live widget for them to contact you, and preferably that could be something more direct than just email us. And so again, the main CTA is just one thing. We want them to like close the deal with us, contact with us, set up a meeting or whatever. We don't want to confuse them with a lot of CTAs. And that's not to say, like, and we just discussed having some videos here and there, but not leaving the page, because the single goal CTA is what we want them to hit. We want them to reach out. We want them to book a meeting. We want them to just say, yes, you can follow up. The things we don't want to do, and what my main landing page has recently been guilty of, is we don't want to present ourselves as all-in-one problem or any version of we help everyone do everything, because that just takes away credibility and it's not relevant. So we don't want to get too deep into listing our features unless they're really relevant to the problems that this prospect has. Carousels, probably not a good idea because most people don't cycle through them. At least that's my opinion. And of course, fine to include videos in your landing page, but not one that autoplays, and certainly not with sound, because the first thing that people will do on your landing page if it starts making noise is close it, because it's going to be an emergency for them and it's going to make them mad because they're probably at work, and now everybody's like, oh, what's that noise? Right? So that's a sure way to kill the conversation right there. So starting to wireframe out my Eco Village landing page. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I've sort of started to put together some steps so that they can imagine themselves in the process, and I've differentiated myself from other solutions. We don't want people mining our data. We do want an audit trail. We would rather have our own solutions on our own servers and not pay a lot of extra monthly subscriptions. And so let's go out and see our actual what we ended up with. And this isn't the final thing. It's just what I put together for my particular example. And I'm going to keep developing this because I really am going after this market. And so this is just a start. And so you'll see some of the sections here. I'm going to just move kind of slow. So we're addressing some of their pains, and we are showing them a little bit about the process. And then we're differentiating ourselves in sort of a poorly formatted way here from the other solutions, which might include other software or what they're doing now. And then we have, I don't know if you remember our ICPs, we had one ICP that was sort of cranky ideologue. So we include some of those if they're common like personas. We'll include some of their objections here, and hopefully we have real quotes from real people to include here. You want to be careful about just making up people. And when I do the final version of this landing page, the fact is I don't have any testimonials yet, so I might put something in here like this is what people might say, or some sort of clue that I'm not pretending that these are real people. Really important benefit that we're going to state here is that your data is not a product, because eco villages are people that really understand that if you're not paying for a product, then you are the product. And so even though many of them use the common solutions that we all use for our documents, for example, they don't like it because it's not private, and they understand that these big companies are profiting off of mining their data. And so that's a big question answered. And then we have some other ones that we've answered. And then we have our one common call to action here, which is going to lead to some sort of a form, or what I'll probably do here is actually replace this with a booking, to contact me and book me directly for a meeting. But then I'm going to be reaching out to them as well. I'm not just going to depend on them coming to my landing page. So back to our presentation. So in the final package, I'm going to give you some examples of outreach. And then here are just a few. I'll let you pause for a second and read what the elements are of these outreach templates. And I included some examples about the Eco-Village campaign. Okay, and so this is just a really simplified version of what that email might look like. I've had some success contacting people by actually recording a video that's personalized to them. It takes about maybe a minute and a half per customer. I did this once for 38 people in the early days. All of the users that I had, I sent them each like a personal greeting with their own name. And the idea is that people will pay a little bit more attention if you give them something specific just for them. So that's an idea, but in general, this is kind of how your communication might be structured for my Eco-Village example. And then the phone call, I'm not going to include a sample phone call here because that would be silly, but this is how you can sort of structure it. And you're going to start by, some version of permission, because when you just start bulldozing in, people don't like that. And so you're going to ask for permission. Like, I want to talk to you about something I'm developing. Here's what I would say. I included the example, I'm not selling anything today, but that's kind of disingenuous. I might tweak that a little bit and say something like, hi, I'm in the early stages of developing a solution to meet the needs of some eco-villages. Can I talk to you about it? I need some help to just make sure that what I'm doing will be useful and make sense. Can we do that? And then you can just jump right in and demo a few things or talk to them about it. And the more authenticity, the better. Please don't be kind of like a robot where they can see you've done this exact thing a million times, and you've got to fold in some personal, some sort of personalization into the conversation. And then you just ask them, just make sure that there's a low risk thing for them to do, and ask them for their participation or to continue the conversation with their the other decision makers or whatever. And you're probably closing the conversation with let's see. Yeah, you're probably closing the conversation with commitment to send them a proposal, and letting them know that their idea is that the next action is for them to follow up and make some sort of a commitment, even if it's not really a commitment. And so that proposal might look like this, or these are the pieces that would be in it. So again, pause if you want to take a look through this. And you're just telling them what you know about the problem, what you have ready to resolve it. In my case, since it's a solution, there's a few things that I have to build to make this a complete solution. I'm honest about that. And then I let them know that there's no risk and that we'd like them to join us on the journey and whatever. And so that, a really simplified version of that might be this proposal right here. All right, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to give them a template, because we don't want them to have to waste their time developing their own letter of intent, because it might not say what we want it to say, and then it's just more friction, right? It's more thinking on their part. So we just provide it to them, and we ask them to agree to a few things and to let them know again that it's not binding, and then they just sign it and return it. And we might do that by e-signature or just asking for their commitment by email. And then that's it. We're really at the end of this course. So just to recap, we found a target, we developed ICPs, we identified what the gaps are, we made a value proposition and an offer. We developed these assets and we start prospecting. Did you notice that we didn't actually go ahead and develop the whole product? Well, that's for a reason, right? Because we want to make sure that we validated enough commitment, enough interest that it's worth our time to develop the solution. Because if I go, for example, if I develop all of these special things that eco-villages need, and then I go out And they're all like, no, we don't want to talk to you. No, we're not interested. No, none of us has any money. No, we're just fine doing it on paper. And I find that I can't overcome the objections and that it's just a closed door. Then I will have wasted all that time. And that's not good. And I like the biggest thing I see on Reddit is examples of that. Like people having developed a solution and like, well, nobody wants my solution and I don't know why. And that's probably why I'm a little guilty in this area myself. I'm having a really hard time finding users. And it's because I didn't get this specific and I didn't get some prior commitment to really ensure that I was going to have a good pipeline of customers. So please reach out if I can answer any questions, or if you'd like me to tailor this into a live presentation for your group. And I hope you'll keep coming to the Frenzied Founder podcast and like and subscribe and drop me a comment, and we will see you soon.